With the political turnabout in 1933, obviously this began to have an impact. And I remember my father getting rather anxious and worried about the situation and talking to us about it. And then we began to feel it at school. There were 4 of us, Jewish children, and we had to sit in the front 2 rows in a special place. And then my father decided that it wasn't right that I should be sitting in a special place and be, as it were, be regarded as something different from the others. So he took me away from the school and put me into another school. And so I had about 2 or 3 years. And then after that, things began to get gradually much worse because, for instance, coming home from school, we were not allowed to talk to some of our friends who were not Jewish in the street anymore. And my brother was regularly attacked and came home with a bloody nose every day. And I remember whole rows of children coming in the opposite direction towards me and pushing me out of the way. I was somehow regarded as something that wasn't desired anymore. And I felt very bad about it, and I couldn't understand why all this was happening. And also people began to disappear in the roads, in the streets, and nobody said anything. But people were not allowed to congregate in the street anymore. They used to hide themselves in the homes. And then there was also curfew for Jewish people, and so we weren't allowed out after 7 o'clock, or could have been 6 or 8, I can't remember. But all these things seemed to start to encroach on us. And then it got gradually worse and worse. And then my mother said we must leave the country. And she said she wondered whether I'd like to go to a college where we learn shorthand and typewriting. Because she said it was very important that I learned how to look after myself and how to earn money. And I was only 13 and a half. On one occasion, I think it was in November 1937, that I heard that the Nazis had set all the synagogues alight. And as I went with the tube, which was overhead rather than underground, to the college where I was learning shorthand and typewriting and some bookkeeping, I could see several fires rising from the synagogues as we passed. And even then I didn't quite understand what it was all about. Nobody had really talked to me about politics. But it seemed very sad, a very sad thing, that all the synagogues should be alight and been burned down. And then, of course, after that, things began to kind of accumulate, and the horror began to suddenly be realized. I don't know how to explain it myself very easily here, but my father had a series of shops, tobacco and delicatessen, and the Nazi gangsters came and smashed in his glass window, and where it wasn't smashed in, they wrote on the glass in large letters, Jew. And although the assistants were not Jewish, they were also thrown out of the shop, and then the shops were smashed. And I think it was in June 1938 that they finally took my father away. He suddenly disappeared one day, and I asked my mother why he wasn't coming home. She said they'd taken him away, and she didn't know where he was.